Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour is AOC running for president, and a Seattle area judge releases dangerous felons again. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I am so tired of the nonsense surrounding this Jimmy Kimmel cancellation. Yesterday, we did a whole deep dive analysis on this. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what side you're on. You know what actually matters? If all the people who are pretending to be upset about Jimmy Kimmel being canceled actually watch the show, he never would have been canceled. I was watching some of his clips last night, and I went back to the last time I remember even watching his show. Mike, that was the Back to the Future episode. So that was 2015. It was actually very clever. 2015 is the year Doc and Marty go to in Back to the Future 2. Well, actually, technically the end of Back to the Future, the original. And what happens is he had Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox drive on stage in a DeLorean. It was very clever, very funny to see if any of the predictions they had actually came true. And they were curious about his cell phone as part of the shtick. And you know what Jimmy Kimmel literally said in the shtick when they were talking about how you could watch videos on the phone? And he said, well, likely most people are going to be watching these clips on the toilet on social media tomorrow. And Marty goes, that's kind of gross. The only way people watch these shows anymore is if there's a clip that goes viral, and a lot of these shows have not figured that out, how to monetize off them enough to keep the show afloat. So, because so few people are actually watching this show, it was easier to cancel it. Look at Joe Rogan on Spotify. Do you remember every single Democrat wanted Joe Rogan's show canceled during COVID? Ivermectin! Oh, he's not getting the jab. He's a science denier. And Spotify said, pound sand. Howard Stern. Everybody wanted that guy canceled, but every network he was on said, we like the ratings. We like the ad revenue. We're going to keep him. If Jimmy Kimmel was popular in the ratings and brought in a lot of money, then ABC and Disney would have said, we're keeping him regardless of what anybody tells us. Now, we still don't know if the Trump administration actually had anything to do with this, or if it was just Brendan Carr and Donald Trump saying they wanted to do something about this. We don't know, but a lot of people are making assumptions. So you've got all these people claiming to be writers who are out of work on Jimmy Kimmel's show. Maybe if you guys had written stuff that was funny, you wouldn't have had these problems because people would have actually watched the show. Now I'm about to get angry phone calls. If people had gone to the Sonics games, it wouldn't have been so easy to move them out of Seattle. The last time I went to a Sonics game, I could basically hear my own voice echo in that place. There were so few people at a game. If people like something, they will pay for something. Nobody was watching his show anymore. So regardless if the Trump administration had something to do with it. But let's do this for a second here. Let's just be practical about this. What did Paramount say about Stephen Colbert? Because they tried to make him a hero, a martyr also. And then they asked the CEO. This is literally what the chairwoman of Paramount, Shari Redstone, said about CBS's cancellation of Colbert.
Outside of the settlement, there are other actions taken to ensure there would be regulatory approval. I think about rollbacks of DEI policies. I think about some things like the cancellation of Steve Colbert's show. That was never explicitly stated as being part of getting regulatory approval, but it's something that I think a lot of people assumed. Do you think that they made the right choices to ensure that they got the regulatory approval?
I'm not going to tie any of that to regulatory approval. I can tell you that we had been looking at late night. It was financially not viable. It had been that way for a long time. We had made a decision months prior to the announcement that we were not going to be going forward with that show. I love Stephen. He does a great job, but we really needed to be in a financially viable business, and you saw we did that with James Corden as well. And in terms of DEI, I think the reasons why DEI exists matter and will always matter, and we need to continue to fight for those issues. But I think the way in which DEI has been executed has often led to more problems than it solved. So any of the changes that were made or continue to be made, but under us, I think we were trying to create an environment that would address the issues in a different way.
That is not somebody on the right. And notice that little thing she said there? James Corden. Everybody forgot about him because he wasn't on air that long. But James Corden, I actually liked a lot of the bits from his show. I liked a lot of the clips from his show. But once again, I watched the clips. I didn't watch the show. I love the musicals he did in the middle of the street. I loved the carpool karaoke stuff. I thought that stuff was hysterical. And that's something I watched the clips of. The industry is changing with regards to late night TV. It's happening to everybody. So let me make sure I got this right. Because Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert have on lefties all the time, we need to keep them on the air. We need to keep paying for it, even though they're losing tens of millions of dollars a year. Now, what were the comments that got Jimmy Kimmel in all this trouble to begin with? Here's what he said on Monday night.
He had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Hang on a second. I don't even care about the comment for a second. Where's the funny? Where's the funny? I'm waiting for the joke. I listened to the rest of what he said. He tried to make a few jokes about Donald Trump. It's just not funny. All these writers who are marching outside of CBS or whatever it is right now, who are marching outside of ABC, that's what it was, and Disney and all these other places, if you guys had been funny, maybe you wouldn't have had these problems. Jimmy Fallon last night, it's a visual gag, so it doesn't really work on the radio. I tried closing my eyes and listening to it. Jimmy Fallon actually had a funny clip about all this last night. He's doing his opening monologue, and this voice is censoring all the bad things he's saying about Donald Trump as if it's from the Trump administration or the FCC. It was pretty funny. I can laugh at our side. I most certainly can. But Jimmy Kimmel, where's the joke in that? You mean him lecturing us every single night on politics isn't funny? I remember when he used to be funny. And by the way, for all of you yelling and screaming about him getting canceled, you're a bunch of hypocrites. You're an absolute bunch of hypocrites. Listen why. This is Jimmy Kimmel not too long ago.
Fox News has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means. Tucker couldn't be reached for comment. He's already on a plane to Moscow to meet with his manager. But what a shock. I mean, what an absolutely delightful shock this is. Now Tucker can spend more time at home tanning his testicles and touching himself to that sexy green M&M.
Okay, we're done with that. Where's the funny? I don't even like Tucker Carlson, and I didn't find any of that funny. How about this one?
Our co-president, Elon Musk, sent a SpaceX vehicle to bring the astronauts back, and when they landed, he fired them immediately upon landing. Tesla stock is way down, almost disastrously so. People have been vandalizing Tesla vehicles, new Tesla vehicles. Please don't vandalize. Don't ever vandalize Tesla vehicles. And so...
That's him saying to vandalize the Tesla vehicles.
Hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
It looks like I really haven't been missing anything on the show. But here's something else that you need to understand about the biz. When affiliates say they aren't going to air a show anymore, that means you can't get the advertising off the show anymore. So when Nexstar and Sinclair's never been shy about their belief system, Sinclair is more on the conservative side, when they say, we don't want to air this guy anymore, you now have a bigger money problem. You now have a show that's losing even more money. According to Fox Business, Disney's CEO Bob Iger and co-chair Dana Walden made the decision to suspend Jimmy Kimmel's show after he planned to double down and go on camera to defend his lie that MAGA voters killed Charlie Kirk rather than kowtow to the outrage. Now, she got this from The Hollywood Reporter. The Hollywood Reporter, we usually only quote if it's something in the real deal when we're giving away fantabulous prizes on a Monday like we will be this week. That's the only time we ever quote anything from The Hollywood Reporter, not when it comes to politics. They yanked him because they thought that would fan the flames as Nexstar and Sinclair affiliates dropped him. Quote, the advertiser calls began to roll in. And then the big affiliate conglomerates, Nexstar and Sinclair, threatened to preempt the show. This is market reaction, not tied to FCC Chair Brendan Carr's actions. In fact, Kimmel planned to double down and not apologize. Remember, the report was out yesterday, and we read it on air, that he planned to apologize. Nope, not at all. He was going to double down on what he had said and blame MAGA even more. So at what point do you go, this guy just isn't worth the trouble anymore? At what point do you go, we only have X million of viewers anyway. It's not that highly rated. We're ticking everybody off. We don't need another conservative boycott of Disney again because those have had impacts. Maybe we should just cut this guy loose. Look, there's only so much of my shenanigans anybody's going to put up with before they say, you know what, that Hoffman just ain't worth the trouble. So while everybody wants to blame Trump, and while everybody wants to blame Brendan Carr, and while everybody wants to blame mergers, and while everybody wants to blame everything else, at the end of the day, if the guy had the ratings and if the guy had the advertisers, then this wouldn't have been an issue. Because Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, clearly has no problem making profits, and he would have said to Donald Trump, or he would have said to Brendan Carr, this guy brings in a ton of money. We don't want to cut him loose like Howard Stern, like Joe Rogan, like anybody who's controversial who has a very, very large following. And I also think the left truly, truly underestimated the impact that Charlie Kirk had on so many people. You're talking about one of the leaders of conservative thought who is universally beloved on the right. And now that they took him out, more people are watching his videos. Even more people are signing up for Turning Point USA chapters. He has become bigger in his death than he ever would have been in life. And this is what the left can't handle. So the left has a bigger problem with Jimmy Kimmel losing a low-rated late-night show while the format is changing than a guy getting shot in the neck and killed over freedom of speech. I've had so many people say, freedom of speech, Jimmy Kimmel, freedom of speech. Didn't hear any of you doing that with Charlie Kirk. In fact, just the other day, we've had to talk about security concerns around here. The fact that so many of my friends come up to me, anybody I haven't seen since the shooting, by the way, who I see now, you know how every conversation goes? Every single person. I'm so sorry about Charlie. You taking precautions? Every single conversation I have had with anybody I haven't seen since the shooting, that is how the conversation starts, which is insane, by the way, beyond insane. So all these people who are mad about Jimmy Kimmel didn't hear you getting this mad about what happened to Charlie Kirk. You're more worried about a TV show getting canceled than a guy getting shot in the neck in front of thousands of college kids, a guy who is a 31-year-old father of two and husband. And you just didn't like that he was a nice guy having discussions with people. Basically, the left is using this to pivot. They think this is going to dig them out of the hole they have dug for themselves with embracing the far left radicals. It's not going to happen because we have the receipts on them. Oh, Trump's censoring. You know what? I said this yesterday, but I said this going the other direction. I said the reason, if the White House had anything to do with this, if the Trump administration had anything to do with this, You have to be worried about what happens when a Democrat eventually gets elected, because then the pendulum swings both ways. But I just want to remind you, before Trump was elected, of what people like Chuck Schumer, who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time, said.
These lies continue tonight. Rupert Murdoch, who has admitted they were lies and said he regretted it, has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight now that he's seen how he has perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again and again. Not because their views deserve such opprobrium, but because our democracy depends on it.
It wasn't just him. Recognize this voice?
We have very real issues with what is permissible on air.
Media organizations or social media platforms should be accountable for the role for being platforms for incitement.
I believe that when it comes to broadcast television, like Fox News, these are subject to federal law, federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't. And when you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other folks on Fox do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence, very clearly incitement of violence. And that is the line that I think we have to be willing to contend with.
You want to know how even more pathetic Kimmel, Colbert, and crew are? Usually when you have all this outrage going in your direction, so let's say everything the right handed to Kimmel and Colbert, usually your ratings go up. They've only continued to go down. It's not like Colbert has gotten more popular since he got canceled. He got a little bit of a bump, and then everybody went back to not watching him. When there is controversy surrounding Joe Rogan, his ratings only went up. They signed him to a bigger contract. Howard Stern got a bigger contract. Forget about what's happening recently, but Howard Stern's been around a really, really long time. When they keep demonizing Charlie Kirk, he's only getting more popular. His social media presence is growing, and he's dead. So these guys are so unpopular that even when they've had the parental advisory label slapped on them, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, oh, they're awful. They hate MAGA, whatever. They're not even popular when they have everybody against them, which should show you how terrible these shows are. Because probably what happened is some people tuned in and said, let's see if these guys are funny. And went, nope, I'm out of here. Now I kind of understand why they were canceled. In fact, I have challenged anybody that I've spoken to about the Kimmel thing. I have said, did you watch the show? And then they get the deer in the headlights look. I said, then shut up, because you're such a hypocrite. If you thought they were so good at their job and defending freedom of speech, etc., you would have watched the show. And you don't. And you didn't. So you're a bunch of hypocrites, especially given what all the Democrats were saying about everybody on the right they want to cancel, which is nonstop. The difference is the people on the right don't show up and shoot you if they disagree with something you said. That seems to be a left problem that's getting worse and worse, no matter how much the left tries to convince you it's the right. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including an activist judge in the Seattle area is now releasing people who beat up trans people. This is a weird thing for the intersectional scale. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Activist Judge Veronica Galvin is at it again, releasing dangerous criminals because of the color of their skin, because of their age, whatever the case may be. And what we have now figured out is her rankings on the intersectional scale. So they love to say trans lives matter, we stand with the LGBTQ plus community. Well, 4 teenagers beat up a trans-identifying person, and she released them from jail. Released them from jail. They assaulted this person, yelled homophobic slurs, and she released them for jail. So conservatives, guess what? It's not just us. It's not just the normies who she releases the attackers of. I guess there's a scale for who ranks in Veronica Galvin's book. According to the Post-Millennial, 2 Renton high school brothers aged 15 and 17 were released this week on electronic home monitoring after being accused of viciously assaulting a 39-year-old transgender person near the Renton Transit Center. The decision, made by King County Judge Veronica Galvin, comes despite police describing the attack as a savage beating that left the victim with multiple facial fractures and the need for reconstructive surgeries. The pictures are awful, by the way. The victim, Nikki Armstrong, told police that earlier had confronted the teens for harassing a security guard. So some defund the police types or something like that. Or maybe they're just obnoxious teenagers doing what obnoxious teenagers do. Hours later, the group chased Armstrong down, knocked them to the ground, and pummeled Armstrong with fists and kicks while making homophobic remarks. They were choking me while one of them was stomping on my face. Now, what's interesting here is that she let them go. Normally, you would think something like this, they'd be like, where's the electric chair? Let's throw the book at them right away. Nope, let them go. According to Fox 13, Renton police arrested 2 suspects at the scene, and then we found out yesterday 2 more were arrested. Prosecutors did their jobs. They referred charges, including second-degree assault, strangulation, and a possible hate crime enhancement. By the way, I hate the hate crime stuff. Either it's an assault or it's not. Either it's attempted murder or it's not. The second you start making about, well, what were they thinking? Are they actually racist inside? You've already lost the argument, because then you've called into question motive. You want an easily provable case, which is why I hate the hate crime stuff. This is not the first time Galvin has raised eyebrows for controversial releases. In 2024, Galvin released a 17-year-old suspected of causing the death of a U.S. Army staff sergeant in a DUI crash. Prosecutors argued for probable cause of vehicular homicide, but Galvin dismissed the case for insufficient information. That same year, she released teens involved in a shooting at the Seafair Parade and a 12-year-old accused of using a ghost gun in a carjacking. In 2019, Galvin released a homeless repeat offender accused of bashing a musician over the head with a bat outside a nightclub. She previously freed prolific offender Travis Berge, who had over 70 arrests, who later brutally murdered his girlfriend before taking his own life. By the way, that is a really short summary of what Travis Berge ended up doing. Holy cow. That's really, really brief.
Fumes got him first.
No, so, Travis Berge, shall we? Let's just dive into who she released. Travis Berge was featured in Seattle is Dying. Seattle is Dying came out in what, Mike, 2018? Let's say 2018, 2019. I think it was 2018. Yeah, 2018. So Seattle is Dying comes out. And one of the main featured players is Ari Hoffman. The other featured player was Travis Berge, who had been arrested over 70 times. And there's a video of him being a problem downtown, you name it. Travis Berge was one of the drugged-out homeless people inside the deadly Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. He's the guy you might remember the video of him trying to plant a garden on AstroTurf, that guy. And then challenging people to fights with a spear stick thing he had made, and then challenging people with a garden hoe. This guy was a real winner. How did Travis Berge meet his end? After the Autonomous Zone, there was some police activity in Cal Anderson Park because they found a dead body with a woman who had nails driven into her head. Turns out it was Travis Berge's girlfriend/wife, and he drowned himself in a vat of bleach inside the fountain building of Cal Anderson Park. Yeah, so she released him. In 2017, Galvin voided a ballot measure that would have banned taxpayer-funded heroin injection sites. She has openly described her role on the bench as a form of political activism. Now, here's something you need to know about judges. I know most judges I know who have social media accounts, it's an alias. Police and judges, it's always an alias. Because with ethics, you're not supposed to show how your bias could lean. Most judges I know don't even have social media accounts, but the ones I do know, they have them so they can look at their grandkids or share family pictures or whatever the case may be. But there are ethics rules. You can't take political sides because anybody can then say you're biased for or against them. She wrote on social media, "What does resistance look like when you wear a black robe? I shall continue to educate, to learn, and to speak my truth as both a judge and a woman of color, ensuring our practices conform to our principles." Why hasn't anybody gone before this judge and said, "Nope, sorry, you got to recuse yourself. I'm asking for a new judge. You are clearly biased." Armstrong now faces reconstructive surgeries to the face and has launched a fundraiser to cover medical expenses and lost wages. Despite the attack, Armstrong told Fox 13 that they hope teens can turn their lives around, but acknowledge that bad kids become bad adults if the system fails to intervene. There's supposed to be a hearing today. As soon as I have the details on it, we'll let you know what the story is. Meanwhile, talking about unruly teens. So there was a board meeting this week about Seattle public schools. Remember we told you earlier this week the kids were all mad about the lunch period changes? Well, it turns out that's not the only thing they're mad about. Apparently the kids in the schools, especially Garfield High School here in Seattle, what are they mad about? That school resource officers may be coming back. You mean police officers may be coming back to campus? Let's recap for everybody, shall we, for a second? So what happened was 2020 rolls around. And there's all the rioting over George Floyd, and Seattle Public Schools says, let's ban police from our campuses. We have them, let's ban them from all our campuses. And violence skyrockets in Seattle Public Schools. Multiple shootings, multiple beatings and assaults, homeless encampments on the properties, drive-by shootings, you name it. So last school year, I should say, there were multiple incidents outside of Garfield High School, and the community demanded action. We demand safety. Okay, and you have every right to ask for that. But now you're mad that they want to bring the police back to campus? What do you propose instead? What is your brilliant solution? Or is it just, you guys learn the lessons from all the protesters here in Seattle? If we yell loud enough, we'll get whatever we want. Well, what do you want? We don't know, but we're going to yell about it until we get it. So you yelled because you want the police gone. Then you want the police back. Now you don't want the police back? Make up your minds. This is why we don't let kids vote or make decisions, because they're still dumb teenagers, just like we were at that age too. Got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. Could AOC be gearing up for a presidential run? God help us all. A new report says it's actually happening. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Earlier today, the House of Representatives passed a bipartisan resolution which honored the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk, condemned political violence, condemned the assassination. This should have been an easy win for the Democrats. This should have been an easy win. Now, 58 Democrats voted against the resolution. I want to give you a little comparison for a second. Adam Smith. Adam Smith comes on the show. Adam Smith answers anytime we ask him to come on. We disagree on a lot of things. But he voted for the resolution. I'm going to read his statement today. Representative Adam Smith today released the following statement after the voting on the resolution introduced by House Republicans regarding Charlie Kirk. Political violence has no place in our democracy. I fully agree with the portions of the Charlie Kirk resolution that condemn it. In this moment, the most important outcome of today's vote is that the House of Representatives went on record against political violence. Is that so hard? Is that so hard? That's easy. Then after that, even though I'm not a fan of it, you can say whatever else you want to, but it should be, yes, we condemn political violence. It's a non-binding resolution anyway. Then he goes on to talk about what he disagrees with Charlie Kirk. Fine. I don't like that part, but he's allowed to say whatever he wants. You know who voted against this thing? And they can vote however they want, but they all had different excuses. Emily Randall, Pramila Jayapal, Marilyn Strickland, all the representatives from Washington. That's right. They are all from Washington. They voted against the House resolution condemning the assassination of Charlie Kirk and all forms of political violence and extending deepest condolences to his family. Ghouls. Absolute ghouls. Pramila Jayapal's statement is so filled with vitriol and hatred, I'm not even going to read the thing. You know who else did this? AOC, the woman who wants to be president.
His rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from the working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution. It is equally important that Congress does unite to reject the government's attempt to weaponize this moment into an all-out assault on free speech across the country, all in the name of Charlie Kirk.
No, stop. Stop. I can't. We got to be united. We got to be together. Let's demonize the other side as much as possible. You know what this was? This was her ramping up for her political campaign for president. Axios today has a report out talking about how AOC is considering a run for president. Let me explain what's going on here. When there is an open section at the top of the ballot in a party, everybody and their mother says they're running for office. Do you remember the first time President Trump ran? And do you remember when they had all the Republican candidates standing in front of the Air Force One on display at the Reagan Library? How many were up there? 8, 12, 35? It was everybody in the Republican Party that could possibly be up there. When you don't have anybody who's a presumptive nominee, when you don't have anybody who everybody's talking about, everybody puts their feelers out and says, maybe I could be that person. So according to Axios, AOC and her team are working to position her to run for president or the U.S. Senate in 2028. Chuck Schumer, watch your back. You want to know why Chuck Schumer is trying to get in with the Mamdanis of the world? Because he's worried if he doesn't, AOC is going to take his seat. A race between Schumer and AOC would clash the Democratic Socialists versus the Democrats. And I'm going to tell you, I don't really see a difference between Democratic Socialists and actual socialists. In fact, let's go to famed political correspondent Vanilla Ice for the difference between the two of them.
It's not the same. Ours goes ding, 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 diggy, ding, ding. Ding, 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 diggy, ding, ding. Ding, 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 ding. That's the way theirs goes. Ours goes ding, 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 diggy, ding, ding. Ding, 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 diggy, ding, ding. That little bitty change. It's not the same.
It's exactly the same. You notice AOC's been campaigning across the country. Now you could say, oh, she's doing this to fundraise for the Democrats because she's their number one fundraiser. She is doing this to raise her national profile. The speech today about Charlie Kirk was trying to cement her with the hard left as if that even needed to be done. She brought in Bernie Sanders to help her out. This is a woman who we are all stuck with for two reasons. One, because 7,000 dummy heads in New York voted for her the first time. And number two is because all of us didn't stop talking about her. And you know the crazy thing is? There's some people who are going to vote for her just because they like the way she looks. No matter what her positions are, some people might actually do that. She held a series of town halls in upstate New York this summer that could help her expand her appeal for a statewide campaign for Senate. According to Axios, at one event in Pittsburgh, New York, Plattsburgh. I'm like, there's no Pittsburgh in New York. Plattsburgh. She said, Plattsburgh, we are here because every town, every city, every neighborhood in the state matters. Every corner matters. No one deserves to be ignored. Except your own district, right, lady? Because the people in your district call you out all the time for being completely MIA for anything they need. You're never there. You're never in your district. And anytime you show up, they yell at you. And it's not the conservative activists showing up who are yelling at you. It's the people in your district because you never do anything for your district. It's a crime-ridden cesspool there in the Bronx. It's not one of these places that has always been a crime-ridden cesspool. There are plenty of nice places in the Bronx. I know because I used to live in the Bronx. That's where Riverdale is, where Archie and the gang lived. There are nice places there. But we now see this is what she's doing. People thought maybe she was just growing her social media presence. Why do you think she's growing her social media presence? This is exactly why. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from our frenemy, the protester, Bennett. Bennett, what's going on, man?
Hey, in the car again. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine. What's going on?
Beautiful. So I had a take on Jimmy Kimmel that you might come out of left field. So you were talking that you just haven't found him funny for a couple of years. I don't really have an opinion on that because I haven't watched him either, although you could count that as a vote in the no column too. But, you know, I actually, after the Man Show ended with Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla, I followed Adam for a while. I'd call into his podcast a lot. Who actually did a bit about organ donation, and I'd called in, but I called in under a pseudonym because I didn't want to feel like I was like puffing myself up about being an organ donor, and so you know, I was Joe from Seattle on their call-in show for a couple of years. But the thing you might find interesting, and I want to tease this as a solution to what I'm proposing as a solution to a lot of the problems on social media, kind of related in a way. So Adam Carolla is part of the roast of Alec Baldwin on Comedy Central. I don't know if that's on your radar.
Oh, sure. I saw that. Yeah.
That was fun. Okay. I mean, I figured you might go for the roast. They have sort of like, to the extent it's political at all, it's kind of, you know, sometimes a little bit right-leaning. And, you know.
Time out. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I actually heard this when Ann Coulter, who was at the roast of? I don't remember who it was, but Ann Coulter was asked to speak. Was it Donald Trump's? I don't even remember, but it was Ann Coulter. And I remember they offered to give her jokes, and she wasn't funny at all, and she deserved all the mockery she got because she had the opportunity to have people write jokes for her, and I saw them, and they were hysterical, and she said no, and she completely bombed at that thing. So there's me being bipartisan for you.
I don't remember who she was at the roast for. I do remember that happened. But the interesting thing was, so after the Alec Baldwin roast, I took some of the jokes that they aired on the actual roast, and I wrote some just myself that I thought fit with the theme of the thing, and I mixed them up, and I put it on like an online survey where you can pay like 25 cents a person for people to fill out a survey, and I said, just go through these, you know, here's what the event was from, just rate one of these on a scale of 10, tell me if you think it's funny or not, because I wanted to see if I could score the same as the ones that were written by the professionals that made it to TV. And I think that it was kind of mixed results. The first time around I tried it, I actually scored lower, and I was like, okay, there's a reason they get paid. I gotta focus. I gotta double down and focus harder on this.
Bennett, you're losing me a little bit. Get to the point.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you're losing me here. Yeah.
All right, and then so the second time I did it, I was able to actually tie or beat some of the ones that made it to in the actual Alec Baldwin roast. And, you know, just some basic silly stuff. But the point is that I think that if you have a way of measuring things based on merit, independent of who you know and independent of getting lucky, that's the kind of environment that I really thrive in. And that's how I would like to see more stuff rated on social media, where it's less about luck and just sort of
Well,
getting
I'll
the
say
right
this,
people to
Bennett.
like it.
I'll say this. I actually, the videos you sent me of you talking to Charlie Kirk, I haven't spliced them up yet, but they got sent to me, and I'm going to share them, and I'm going to tag them because it was good content. You sent me good content,
Okay.
and on its merits, it's good content. I'll probably do it this weekend if I have some time. I've just been swamped. So I'll say is that good content is good content. As Mike says, wholesome content is wholesome content. So the problem here is that Jimmy Kimmel, you just said it yourself at the beginning. You said you haven't watched him in years. Other people haven't either. The Man Show, highly rated. All of us boys loved that show when we were teenagers or whatever it was at the time. We all thought it was hysterical. We all loved Jimmy Kimmel. It hasn't been funny for years is the problem. Bennett, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. It's 206-421-5757. When we come back, new information on the person who tried to kill Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and it's fitting an all too familiar pattern. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We've been talking about this for a while now, but the violence is coming from leftist ideology, and specifically certain parts of leftist ideology, which are mentally ill. And as opposed to treating it, I'm not talking about their ideology, I'm talking about the fact that they want to cut parts off, that all of a sudden we're saying we want to affirm that instead. Look, you want to say you want to tax people so you can spend it on dumb programs? I disagree with you. I don't think it's a good ideology, but it's not, well, it is self-harm, I guess, when you look at it. But with regards to this, we are seeing a pattern of these people who are very mentally ill. And as much as the left wants to tell you all the violence is on the right, it's just not. Mary Margaret Olohan, she is the White House correspondent for the Daily Wire, broke a story today. She's got the court documents because the U.S. Department of Justice is prosecuting the guy who attempted to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Remember all that? And then the Democrats wouldn't vote for more security for Supreme Court justices? Yeah, I remember that. And she writes, the man who attempted to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh identifies as a transgender woman and was deeply mentally ill and suicidal. According to the documents they got, these are from the Department of Justice recommending that Nicholas Rosk, the defendant, should be sentenced to 30 years for attempting to kill a U.S. Supreme Court justice. In the filings obtained by the outlet, DOJ attorneys argue that the court's sentence must send the unequivocal, clear, and strong message that the attempted violence and threats of violence against members of the judiciary, as well as other public and federal officials, cannot and will not be tolerated, and will be justified and will be justly and severely condemned. The revelation that Rosk has been using a female name and pronouns is significant given the rise in transgender violence across the U.S. A gunman living with his transgender boyfriend is accused of murdering Charlie Kirk. Kirk's murder came only a few weeks after a 23-year-old trans-identifying gunman named Robin Westman opened fire at a Catholic school and on children while they prayed in Minneapolis. This is the kind of stuff we're seeing a pattern of. Though it was reported at the time of the attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh in 2022 that Rosk portrayed himself as a self-styled trans gamer girl on the internet, more information about the attempted assassin's gender identity has not been made available to the public. And most people completely forgot about it until these documents came out regarding the sentencing and the charges. After the leak, published originally by Politico in May 2022, Rosk searched terms relating to combat and body armor approximately 28 times. Within a month, he had searched for firearm-related terms over 90 times. That included quietest semi-automatic rifle, gun calipers, best silencer for a Glock 17, and more. He was also searching, do snipers aim for the head or the chest? Does the Secret Service protect Supreme Court justices? The easiest way to open a locked door, how to break glass quietly, how to make shoes quieter, and how to make handcuffs with zip ties. On Discord, the same gamer platform, he was asking his friends, would associate justices be removed from the Supreme Court help women long-term? I was thinking of the Roe decision. I feel like those 9 people make a much bigger impact than most people. And the thought of Roe v. Wade and gay marriage both being repealed has me furious. He was also researching how to kill people. Between May and June of 2022, he was looking for the most effective place to stab somebody and how to quietly knock somebody out. He was searching how far in the neck is the trachea, what is the best length of knife for stabbing. Also, Kavanaugh was not his only target. He was looking to kill the other Supreme Court justices who were conservative. We have a problem with the radical left in the country. The reason the left is all over this Jimmy Kimmel thing is because they think it will distract from the Charlie Kirk news. There is no other reason why. Even with Colbert, they didn't go this hard. They are doing this now because they know they are losing the pulse of the country, and they want to try and get the electorate back, and they think Jimmy Kimmel's going to have them do it. Well, the problem was nobody watched Jimmy Kimmel. He's not the hero you think he is, guys. When we come back, the Portland mayor is now siding with Antifa. I kid you not, after over 80 days of rioting in Portland. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming this hour, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell wants more taxes to fix his out-of-control spending. And Fake News Friday put a smile on your face heading into the weekend. But before we get to any of that, last night, we found out late that authorities in Chelan County say they may have located the remains of Travis Decker, the homeless Army veteran accused of murdering his 3 young daughters earlier this summer before disappearing into the Cascade Mountains. This is the guy who had refused to return them to their mother after a custody visit. I don't know why this guy had custody at all when he was homeless. The Chelan County Sheriff's Office announced Thursday that human remains were discovered during a coordinated search effort led by the U.S. Marshal Service Pacific Northwest Violent Offender Task Force. The large-scale operation also involved the Washington State Patrol, U.S. Border Patrol, U.S. Forest Service, Spokane County Sheriff's Office, and the FBI. Now, they found the remains in a remote wooded area south of Leavenworth. While DNA testing is still underway to confirm the identity, preliminary evidence suggests remains are those of Decker. Now, what that means is likely they found his wallet, or dog tags or something else on him, and they're just waiting for the actual DNA analysis. Now, you have to do that in case the guy who was trained by the U.S. Army planted it on somebody else he killed, who knows. But it seems like they finally have this guy, and this manhunt might actually be over. However, I think about this in contrast with the story of what happened with the young girl who was allegedly raped in the homeless encampment, where the suspect was released from that. Why is there a kid in a homeless encampment anyway? The kid never should have been there in the first place. Was the kid living with a parent? How did the kid end up? Who was watching the entrance? Who's watching who's coming and going from this encampment? Why did this guy, Travis Decker, have custody of the kids? There's a lot of questions here that need to be answered, but kids should not be in these encampments, and I see it all the time. One of the saddest things we've seen is that we're coming off the highway one day, saw a kid in a backpack hop the divider, go into a tent off of the I-90 interchange. Why is that even happening? And this wasn't like a teenager who's going to score drugs or something. No, this is where that kid lives. If there are kids in these tents, something is severely wrong. The homeless industrial complex isn't just something that's here in Seattle, by the way. It's across the country. In the what was it? I think it was 2019. 2019, I was down in San Diego. And I'm in San Diego on vacation one time, and I take the rental car, and I go out to see one of these safe lots they say is life-changing for all the homeless. It looks like a giant FEMA encampment, but surrounding the safe lot was all these RVs of homeless people. They weren't in the safe lot. They were outside because that's where the drug dealers go, and they know they don't have to go anywhere, and they can just stay there, and they can get resources from the safe lot. Another safe lot I saw was at a church. And I see that there's some kid living in a minivan who runs back and forth, and a woman there said, yeah, he's been living in that van for 7 years. 7 years! If you're paying more and more money towards this, and that kid is still living in a van after 7 years, you have completely failed. Completely failed. And you wonder why nobody's looking at oversight of any of this at all. Now, one of the places that has completely failed at all of this is Portland. Portland has spent billions of dollars on homelessness, and the issue has only gotten worse. It's gone exponentially worse. But rather than dealing with any of that, instead, the new Portland mayor, Keith Wilson, is deciding to side with Antifa. So, just the other day, President Trump said that he is declaring Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Great, wonderful, fantastic. Antifa runs Portland. For over 80 consecutive nights, they have been rioting outside the ICE facility in Portland. They have stolen food from food banks and other resources there for the low-income properties across the street. You know that woman who went viral for saying, "What the hell are you doing here?" You remember all that? Low-income person? You remember that the residents of the buildings across the street are having problems because the tear gas keeps coming through the filters into their building because they weren't designed to stop that? This is the kind of stuff that is happening on a nightly basis. The only two people I know who are covering this is Katie Daviscourt and the Honey Badger mom over on social media. That is it. None of the mainstream media outlets are covering this at all. But over 80 consecutive nights of riots, I think at this point we're almost up to 90. So after all this rioting, the question has been, why aren't the police in Portland doing anything? And what we have found out is that they've been given a stand-down order by the mayor. Well, Portland Mayor Keith Wilson came out with a statement. He is finally going to address what's going on at the ICE facility. Give a listen.
Hello, I'm Keith Wilson, Portland's mayor. I'm here to share an important update about the Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Southwest Portland. Following a formal investigation into the facility's detention practices, the City of Portland will soon issue a notice of land use violation. Federal records show that ICE violated its land use conditions of approval 25 times in 10 months by detaining people for more than 12 hours or keeping them overnight. I'm here to thank our community for shining a light on these concerns and to thank our staff for conducting a thorough and thoughtful review. I want to be clear about what this means. This is just one step in a formal process. The outcome is not a foregone conclusion, and the federal government will be given an opportunity to respond. However, we must remember this review was triggered by the federal government's breaking promises to our community regarding the detention of human beings. Whatever comes of this process, I hope you will join me in celebrating and supporting Portland's immigrant community and standing in solidarity with all those who've been impacted by the actions of the federal government in recent days. I owe a special thank you to city staff for doing this hard and important work with integrity. Thank you, Portlanders, for your outreach and your advocacy. I'm committed to keeping you updated as we move forward thoughtfully and transparently.
So as opposed to going after Antifa, which was just declared a terrorist organization, he is literally doing their bidding. Let's be clear about what happened here. Antifa-aligned activist groups filed all these complaints, sent all the info to the mayor's office, leaned on the mayor's office to have them go after ICE. Let's remember that some of the reasons why these guys have been there longer in this detention facility is because it's not safe to take them outside because of what Antifa has been doing. But rather than going after a domestic terrorist organization, he is siding with Antifa. Do you remember the mayor during the Summer of Love of Portland, Ted Wheeler? Ted Wheeler sided with Antifa all the time. How did they reward him? They went to his house so many times the guy had to move. So the place has been vandalized. The ICE facility has been vandalized so many times that even one time you had all these lunatics bring out a guillotine to threaten the ICE agents. I seem to remember the left going bonkers about a guillotine that made an appearance on January 6th. Didn't even hear them mention this once. More than 27 people have been federally charged, and he's taking the side of the terrorists. That's what he's doing. Portland is lost. Rather than dealing with the homeless crisis, rather than dealing with the crime, rather than dealing with the terrorists, they are giving in to Antifa. This is insane. Absolutely insane. Portland is completely lost. Completely lost. Question is Seattle much farther behind? Here's somebody else who's coordinating with radical activist groups. Remember yesterday we told you the story that our friend Brandy Cruz over on Undivided broke about Sarah Perry, the King County council member, who was doxing the location of ICE agents in a hotel, literally giving out the floor they were staying on in the hotel to radical activist groups, likely including Antifa. And then when she was caught for it, she doubled down. She doubled down. She didn't say, no, it wasn't me. She said, yeah, it was me, and I apologize. Lady, if you break the law, apologizing doesn't fix anything. I couldn't believe how many clicks and likes and shares and retweets and everything this post got because people are furious because she's doxing ICE agents. And you want to know something else? It is clear that the government knows she did something wrong and they don't want to talk about it. How do I know this? I sent a request for comment to the governor's office, to the attorney general's office. And I said, isn't this a violation of our doxing laws locally? Are you guys going to do anything about this? And then I got a response. Now, I don't normally get responses from any of these offices because Bob Ferguson controls all the communication, and it runs through his office. But a name popped up that I haven't seen in a long time. Deputy Communications Director for the AG's office, Mike Falk.
Now, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
Remember, he used to be Inslee's Communications Director? Now, when Mike Falk responds, he always does it with the snark, with the heavy, heavy, heavy snark. And the heavier the snark, the more you know you're close to the target. He wrote, if you want to know how state law defines doxing and the remedies it establishes, here's the statute. By the way, dude, I looked up the statute. That's why I emailed you. Thank you for reminding me of something I already knew and already asked. As a state agency, Washington State Patrol is one of our clients that we represent and provide legal advice and analysis to. Our office has a long-standing policy of neither confirming nor denying questions about investigations or the potential for investigations. Mike, doesn't the Attorney General go out all the time talking about what they're up to? In fact, Nick Brown is one of the most visible people in this state talking about what he's up to. Now, all of a sudden, oh, we don't comment on investigations. We're going to try and be like the FBI. This woman admitted to breaking not just Washington law, but also federal law. And now you guys are saying, oh, well, we're not going to check that out. Washington is lost. Washington is following Portland. This is absolutely crazy how bad things are getting around here. And in fact, it's even crazier than you know. I don't know if you've heard of the Socialist Rifle Association. The Socialist yeah, exactly. Mike's all surprised by that. Made up of over 10,000 members, according to the Post Millennial, has been conducting training for socialist and transgender extremists, and the group has now been linked to 4 major crimes. Now, the Daily Wire published a report that the leadership on their website appear to have attempted to hide their names. But as a report from the outlet was released this week, the leadership link on their website has been redirected to a music video from Rick Astley's Never Going to Give You Up, Never Gonna Let You Down. He's the ultimate politician, in a move commonly known as Rickrolling. However, archives of the website, as of August 14th this year, still display the names and contact information of the leadership officers. The president goes by the first name of Hope and identifies as she, they pronouns. Many others in the leadership use the trans pronouns as well. According to the investigation from the Daily Wire, members of the Socialist Rifle Association get membership cards with the quote, "Any attempt to disarm workers must be frustrated by force if necessary," with a picture of Karl Marx. They stock up on rifles and other gear, and a common logo used by the group is the transgender flag with the phrase "Defend Equality." However, the videos presented by the group do not look like they are training for self-defense, but for combat. The crimes that were linked to the group includes the shootings of a correctional officer in Texas on July 4th, when a group of militants opened fire on DHS officers near an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas. Benjamin Hanil Song, who is charged with shooting an officer in the neck as part of the Socialist Rifle Association's Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. Paul Hyun King, the suspect charged with setting fire and shooting up 5 Teslas in Las Vegas, appears to be a member of the organization as well. Court documents obtained by the outlet said Kim has an Instagram page where he follows the Socialist Rifles Association's page. In a post from October 2018, the Reno Socialist Rifle Association's Instagram page is a picture of a subject that appears to be Paul Kim training with firearms. On January 20th, Adam Matthew Lansky allegedly firebombed a Tesla dealership in Salem, Oregon. And in the charging documents, prosecutors said Lansky is a competitive shooter and a former member of the Socialist Rifle Association. He is skilled and well-practiced in the use of firearms and combat scenarios. The improved incendiary devices used by Lansky were all manufactured by him. Daniel Allen Baker, who was sentenced to 44 months in prison for threats for offering cash rewards and information leading to the verified identification too. And everyone in this video from January 6th, don't worry, I won't be going to the cops. We have decided to handle this ourselves. Baker has made multiple violent threats to those he claims are white supremacists and fascists. This is the guy who tried to round up people in Florida. Do you remember that? This is the guy who may have been involved in the autonomous zone here in Seattle, in the shooting of the 2 teenagers towards the end of the zone. Socialist Rifle Association chapter in Utah said that Tyler Robinson, the suspect charged with murdering Charlie Kirk, was not a member, but did not provide an answer when the outlet asked if Lance Twiggs, Robinson's transgender roommate and romantic partner, was a member. So we have a real problem with the left, a huge problem with the left. Now, this group is under investigation. This group is under investigation. In fact, there's another group with them. One of the other ones that's linked to them is the Armed Queers of Salt Lake City, which is now wiping its social media after the assassination. It has been revealed that one of the lead organizers of the Armed Queers, trans-identified Ermia Fanian, who also has a wide array of political connections in the state of Utah, has been recognized as a recipient for the 7 for 17 award by Utah Global Diplomacy, according to the Post-Millennial. The University of Utah had previously held a sponsored lecture for the group in 2023. A forum to express interest in joining the group states, Armed Queers Salt Lake City is a revolutionary LGBTQ organization dedicated to the defense success of oppressed people's movement. And it's based on 6 principles, including armed and militant protection of queer and trans communities and all oppressed people, the end of capitalist oppression and exploitation, the creation of a socialist society, trans liberation from the gender binary and biological essentialism, I don't even know what that means, the end of commodification of housing by landlords and recognition of housing as a human right, the abolition of prisons and police as they serve as nothing but tools of capitalist oppression, and the dismantling of bourgeois, nonprofit industrial complex and replacing it with organized revolutionary movement. They really want to take us all on. They want to take down the United States of America. And now it looks like they have a hit list. And now it looks like they are acting on their hit list. Tell me again how all the radical extremism and violence is coming from the right. Have you heard anybody mention this in the mainstream media? No, and you're not going to, because they want to keep up with the false narrative. January 6th, January 6th, January 6th, the deadly insurrection. I got that one hurled at me today when I was arguing with somebody about politics. They don't want to admit where the violence is coming from, even after a tragedy like we had last week with Charlie Kirk. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell is so desperate to win an election, he's promising to raise your taxes. Wait a minute, what? We'll give you all details on that when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your last chance to win tickets to see The Who at Climate Pledge Arena, which I believe the show is next week, as a matter of fact. Yet another reason to keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Aaron in Sumner. Aaron, what's going on, man?
Yo, Ari, I've been hearing that January 6th argument, too. And I think people have forgotten about the insurrection of October 13th, 2023.
Which one is that?
That's where they stormed the rotunda during the vote to fund Israel.
Ah, forgot about that one. That's right. Or how about all the ones during the Kavanaugh hearings? I don't hear them talk about that, do they?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah. Or how about this one? How about when Kshama Sawant unlocked the doors of Seattle City Hall during the autonomous zone and led all the BLM and Antifa people to occupy the building during COVID when it had been shut down for months?
Right. No, there's many examples out there. That one particularly just stands out because that was also the Capitol, and that was specifically to disrupt a vote. Everything they claim about January 6th.
Right. It exactly was. In fact, they tried to do the same thing during Kavanaugh. I don't think they were very successful, but they tried to do the exact same thing. What's fascinating to me, Aaron, I don't know how much of the show you've heard this week, but something we've been doing is dismantling this narrative of it's all right-wing violence. What the left is trying to do is couch everything as right-wing violence or write it off as something else. Antifa and BLM, they go, they're just anarchists. They're just anarchists. They're not on the left, even though the Democrats support them and even though they support the Democrats. With the Hamasniks, they're saying, well, it's far-right Muslim extremism or Islamic extremism. Technically, you're right, but who are the ones who are supporting them? Who are the ones marching in the street with them? Which members of Congress are backing them? You see the games they're playing now with the numbers?
Well, right, and I've been seeing that, and of course I've been out there arguing as well. The other one that they like to throw around is that Trump's on the Epstein list. The thing that bothers me about that is, well, Epstein, the FBI investigation started back in 2007. Trump kicked him out of his club. He's the one that was cooperating with them. They've had 3 Democrat presidencies. They've had Democrat majority, I don't know how many number of times, and they've tried, 100 failed felony charges? If they had this one thing that was so for sure going to throw him in prison and keep him out of the presidency, why didn't they use it?
Exactly. And why do you think they're using the Jimmy Kimmel thing right now? Because they can go, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Aren't these the same guys who had the Ministry of Truth? Do you remember that nonsense? That crazy lady who was trying to censor all of us and control what was truth, what wasn't under the Biden administration? Do you remember that craziness?
Yeah, well, among other things, as well as, Homeland Security that came out with all these different symbols of extremism, including the cross and, the Betsy Ross flag.
Oh, yeah, and the Don't Tread on Me and all that. Oh, that was a fun time, wasn't it now? Aaron, good call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, back here in Seattle, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell is proposing another sales tax hike. But do you know why he's proposing it? He claims it's for first responders. Maybe if we weren't wasting so much money on Homeless Inc., billions and billions and billions a year, we'd have money for other things. Maybe if we weren't wasting so much money on transit, which is behind schedule, over budget, and less people are taking, maybe we'd have the money for first responders. If you cared about first responders, you know what you would have done? It would have been such an easy win. It would have been such an easy win. Bruce Harrell gets elected at the tail end of, actually, it wasn't even the tail end of COVID. He got elected in, 2021. So we still had some more COVID time to go here in Washington. So what happens? He gets elected, and he gets elected under public safety. You remember this? Do you know what he could have done if he was serious about public safety? Could have hired back everybody Jenny Durkin had fired for not getting the jab. And it would have been an easy win. Why? Because people like me would have had to say, oh, look, he's about the police. He's about the firefighters, all these people who got fired. But he didn't do that because he didn't want any rabble-rousers. He didn't want any troublemakers. So he said, nope, we're not going to hire them back. So now he's talking about raising taxes on this, and he's promising reparations. Look, Bruce Harrell has been hit in the head a lot. He used to play football. And I'll tell you from meeting him in person, it kind of shows he's been hit in the head a lot. If he had an original idea in his head, it would die of loneliness. He's just repeating the Democrat mantra, which isn't do anything new, just tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. When we come back, my friends, the ADL is at the center of controversy for pushing this false narrative that all the violence is coming from the right. We'll tell you what's happening when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Earlier this week, when the left was trying to change the narrative about who's responsible for the political violence, they were using a lot of sources from the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. The ADL is a left-wing political group, and rather than doing what it's supposed to do is fight against discrimination, defamation, and anti-Semitism, they're just in bed with the Democrat Party, so they are more than happy to be willing participants in this. I had a chance to sit down with Prager University's Shabbos Kestenbaum, the kid who sued Harvard, about his experiences with the ADL. Give a listen to part of that interview. You're recently out of Harvard. You sued Harvard over their anti-Semitism. You won. The Trump administration picked up the charge and did a whole lot more with it, as you have often said. You know, people gave you a little bit of garbage with how come you didn't continue the fight, and your line was perfect. It was the Trump administration could do so much more than I ever could. The Department of Education could do more than I ever could. But I just think about it as the head of Turning Point USA, a college organization, had a college kid right there in front of him trying to settle him down. That's a guy who knew how to talk to college kids.
Yeah.
But something that I've seen on social media the past few days, I saw it on Fox News, is a lot of people are mad at the ADL, as am I, for many other reasons. But the ADL is supposed to be this defender of Jews organization. And I noticed that with you, I never saw any of these organizations coming to your defense. Instead, I see organizations like the ADL defending the other side because they line up politically with them. And I'm blown out of the water of how difficult they've made my life here in Seattle, but also how they weren't there just because somebody lined up the wrong way politically, and now they're pushing this white supremacist narrative.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the ADL because if you go to Harvard's campus, for example, and you talk about the ADL, you will be laughed at because ADL is a white nationalist, far-right, white supremacist group. And the reality is it's probably the exact opposite. This is an organization that internally within the American Jewish community receives so much criticism specifically because they spent a considerable amount of time pre-October 7th focusing on issues that not only had nothing to do with the Jewish people, but in many respects actually harmed the Jewish people. Movements like Black Lives Matter being one of them. And look, I supported Black Lives Matter, but in my defense, I was 17 at the time. An organization that raises hundreds of millions of dollars annually, all in the name of protecting the American Jewish community, should probably have realized, because the signs were there, that this is not an organization we want to be supporting. So that's number one. And then the second point, as it pertains to Charlie in particular, if the whole point of the ADL, or really any organization, is to, protect the interests of the American Jewish community, Charlie was one of our biggest defenders, and he wasn't Jewish. This is someone who I said earlier was so morally and religiously repulsed by anti-Semitism. And in fact, when he had, this is a month or two ago at his Turning Point USA conference, a debate between Dave Smith, the third-rate comedian, and Josh Hammer, an actual intellectual, I obviously disagree with Dave Smith on basically everything, especially his comedic material, because it's not funny. But point being, Charlie prefaced and closed that debate by saying, we can and should have debates and disagreements when it comes to Israel and America first, but what we must agree on is that there is no room for Jew hatred in any political discourse in the United States. So agree or disagree with Charlie's politics, but he, in effect, was like the best spokesman for the American Jewish community, and he wasn't Jewish. So when I, for example, go on TV, and I was on Fox today, when I talk about Israel or when I talk about why I support the American Jewish community, it's like, yeah, obviously, my name is freaking Shabbos Kestenbaum and I wear a yarmulke. But when a guy like Charlie Kirk says it, he had no incentive to do it. On the contrary, he had pressures to not do it. Gen Z Americans were increasingly shifting away from Israel. And Charlie, by the grace of God, insisted up until the day he died that we support Judeo-Christian values, learn the Hebrew Bible, go to church, be a man of God. And I don't know of any obvious replacement to someone like Charlie.
I completely agree. In fact, you mentioned earlier in our conversation that Charlie, the night before he died, was talking to some rabbis. And we actually had Rabbi Walicki on the show to discuss that conversation that they had. And it was fascinating what Rabbi Walicki said. He said it was a back and forth where Charlie was saying over 50% of the questions I get on college campuses these days were about Israel. Yeah. I want to refine my talking points, and I want to talk them out with you, and I want to argue them out with you. And it wasn't a tell me what to say. It was a, this is what I believe. Now give me, and it was devil's advocate. It was back and forth, because that seems to me, even though I didn't know him very well, who Charlie was. And just like you just said, Charlie did so much advocacy. He did more than a term that I love that you use, the anti-Semitism industrial complex, which there are all these organizations that raise millions of dollars every year that claim they're fighting against anti-Semitism. And yet when we actually need them, they're not there because they're more worried about their political connections than actually helping Jews. Oh, we're not going to help Ari Hoffman because he's politically conservative, and we can't actually step up and help him because it'll tick off the left. It is mind-blowing to me and how eye-opening that experience it was when I was getting death threats that the ADL goes, nope, 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 we don't want to touch this. And meanwhile, I'm a board member of a local synagogue, and they didn't want to touch this. I assume your experience was somewhat similar with some of these organizations, because the last time I saw you, and you were at my house in Seattle, I mean, we had a conversation about this kind of stuff, but I'm just shocked that I never saw any of these organizations come to your defense.
Yeah, I would say that of the biggest legacy organizations, Jewish legacy organizations in the United States, irrespective of your politics, the question must be asked. You have collectively raised billions of dollars. What is it specifically that you have done with that money, especially as it pertains to the advancement of the interests of the American Jewish community? Because at best, October 7th showed that that money was used ineffectively, and at worst, it showed that the money was actually used against our interests. And the fact that you were not given, forget about protection, because that sounds very defensive, but you were not given the resources whereby you can continue the important work you're doing, really underscores a fundamental point whereby if the institution is more important than the people, then the institution has really lost its legitimacy to represent the people. And if the interests of the ADL or the AJC or whatever the organization is are more important than like American Jews, Jews on college campuses, Jews like yourself who are prominently featured in American Jewish life and are therefore targets, then we really have to ask the question, well, then what exactly do the organizations do and who exactly do they serve? And I may have mentioned this last time we spoke, which is the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, their job is to root out the waste, the fraud, and abuse in all the governmental agencies. And I actually think, and Malcolm Hoenlein, the former president of the Conference of Major Presidents of Jewish Organizations, kind of told me this as well. There should be a DOGE for the Jewish establishment organizations. Like, I'm not saying donate, don't donate. All I'm saying is if you are donating to those organizations, you should ask them like very clearly, what have you done to help Jewish students on college campuses? What have you done to support the state of Israel? And if the organizations can't explicitly and clearly articulate what they have done, then I would really encourage you as the donor to say, okay, well then I'm not going to support this organization. And one of the other things I kind of have started talking about more openly because, you know, I stopped getting invited to their gala dinners anyway, so I don't have much to lose, which is if you want to support students happens to be a really good example. If you want to support students, then just support the students. Why give it to an organization that's really just acting as a middleman? Just give it to the students directly. Give it to the Chabad on campus because they know more than any organization what specifically the students need because they're basically comprised exclusively of students. So I think a lot of these legacy organizations need to be making a compelling case to the American Jewish community as to how and why they're relevant, as opposed to just assuming that we are going to continue giving in the way that we've given before. And the last point I want to make, sorry for the long answer, is I'm not out to get any of the organizations. I actually want to help them. I think if they succeed, we all succeed. But the writings, the red sirens are flashing. I am telling you, I'm telling any of the Jewish nonprofits, both on your show and I've told privately, do not take for granted the support of young American Jews. They do not, as a whole, see the rationale of supporting all of these legacy organizations that they can't really identify as helpful in their own campuses, in their own experiences. So you need to make the case to them as to why when they become young professionals and when they make some money in their lives, why they should be donating to your cause. Because right now, there's a lot of skepticism, and I think rightly so.
And a perfect example of what he's talking about is how many Jews are now opening Turning Point USA chapters because the traditional Jewish organizations abandon them in favor of lefty politics. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. Coming up next, Fake News Friday. Put a smile on your face heading into the weekend. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
rely on.
It's called fake news.
With Young Zach.
Educate yourself, you fool.
On the Ari Hoffman Show, Talk Radio 570 KVI.
After a brief hiatus where young Zach was out of the country, he is back with more fake news than ever. Zach, what do you got for us?
Well, it's good to be stateside. That plane came in. I leaned over to my wife. I said, Annie, look at that field. Those lines are measured in yards.
Nice.
That's good. That's good.
No meters on the pitch out here.
Do you have any particularly exciting stories from your time, dare I say, abroad?
Very good.
Please, Mike.
Very good.
See, now that I know that Military Appreciation Day Mondays are over at the Washington State Fair, but we still do tableside honka-honkas here on Fake News Friday. Huge demand for Big Mike's Big Red Horn, by the way. Shout out to
Don't say that.
Huge demand.
Shout out to everybody who visited us at the Washington State Fair this season. That was a ton of fun.
Even when you weren't there and it was just me, people are coming up and going, "Where's Mike? Where's the horn?"
Yes.
What do you got for us today, Zach?
Yeah, so I'll tell you my one story that I had from abroad that I thought was... Oh, man.
So she rolls up to me and then she says...
Oh, man.
Anyway.
Yes.
She says? I don't... Anyway.
The titular abroad is what I was trying to say. Sorry, Pam, for pushing the lines of decency here.
Oh, you broke Zach again.
I don't know why titular got me in that moment. Well, I do know, but...
Yes.
You know why.
I know why.
Tell us your story,
All
Zach.
right. We get off the plane in Portugal.
Yes.
We get in this Uber. Very nice guy. And the guy sees somehow through our account or something that we're from Seattle. And he says, I'm actually a big American football fan. Mm-hmm. And I apologize for morning show listeners who've heard this story, but he says, I'm a big American football fan. And the first football game I ever watched was the 2014 Super Bowl. He said, I believe, yeah. And he says,
games.
I think that was you guys against the New England Patriots. I said, yes, thank you for reminding me. And he said, yeah, that was the first game I ever watched. You had that Marshawn Lynch guy had a great game. I said, he sure did. And he said, my first game ever, and I couldn't figure out why'd they throw it. That really happened. In the middle of nowhere, Portugal, this random guy's like, I know what happened.
Very good. Very good.
That's
I love
amazing.
that.
Oh, man. But we got some great stuff from the Babylon Bee this week about some less than great topics. But we'll start with the Babylon Bee. FCC mandates every station air nightly broadcast of the President Trump Happy Fun Variety Hour.
It's not just press conferences on Air Force One?
I think so. Have you seen the ballroom? They're working on it.
It's the greatest ballroom you've ever seen.
It's going to be big and voluptuous.
We're going to have a ball pit in the ballroom.
Ooh, don't threaten me with a good time.
Kind of fun.
That would be awesome.
What else you got?
Well, Babylon Bee also had people okay with murder outraged by TV show cancellation.
I like that. That's good.
Guess we can't hit the same sound effects. See, I'm out of practice.
Yeah. That's
all right.
Babylon Bee also has J.D. Vance takes over as host of Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Oh, man.
Wait. J.D. Vance, not Marco Rubio?
Why would it be?
Because he has every other job on the planet.
Oh, I like it. Though, I don't know. I really enjoyed the J.D. Vance hosting of the Charlie Kirk show. And now I know it's a joke, but don't threaten me with a good time. I think and literally call it the Jimmy Kimmel Show, hosted by J.D. Vance.
What world would we live in where our radio station's like, we'd like to syndicate the vice president?
I mean, come on. I've already renewed my Disney Plus subscription, so it's like, hey man, Disney, ABC, take my money.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you, bro. Yeah, I think he did a really great job, as a matter of fact. I think it was a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, I always like when he's on other podcasts, which he does quite a bit.
I think also it was the right pitch of emotional, covering the news, covering what's going on. I thought it was great. I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now we're going to go back to funny.
Let's go back to funny.
Kinda. Matt Gutman tears up while citing personal touching Mein Kampf.
Oh, no!
I didn't write the fake news. I just
that gets my kosher seal of approval. That was very good. That's very good, Zach.
Yeah, Zach with the high heat back from vacation.
Mike missed this one from yesterday. So we're in an elevator, a European elevator, and I'm looking around the elevator, and I see this label on it. It was a brand I normally get, like Otis around here?
It's always Otis, yeah.
And this was a Schindler. And so I said, I said, are we on Schindler's Lift?
I could have gone more up.
To which they say, yeah.
I took that joke to a new level.
Very good. I'm telling that one at synagogue this weekend. I say, here's what happened to young Zach while he's on vacation.
Wow.
I'm glad you guys liked it. My wife and her friends did not like it nearly as much.
Kosher seal of approval again. I like that
Wonderful.
one a lot. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the temporary card. I will relinquish that after this segment. All right, we'll move on to the last one from the Babylon Bee. ICE enforcement action at chocolate factory nabs 475 illegal Oompa Loompas.
Send them back.
Send them back.
Doopity doos.
Yeah. I have a puzzle for you. What do you get when you cross the border illegally?
Speaking of unpermitted food. We all know I hate an unsanctioned hot dog cart. And you know who else does? Tacoma Pierce County Health Department.
What do you got on that
Well,
thing?
they put out on the 15th. Was that Monday?
Yeah.
On Monday, they put out, here's why unpermitted food vendors are a threat to your health. I've been saying it for a while.
I will say is that's why we live forever these days if you live in New York, because you just eat that stuff and you can digest anything after
Yeah, but
that,
they got permits.
Sometimes.
They should. You know who has permits on a Pierce County street corner?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hank.
So they've written a whole thing. Who needs a permit? Everybody. Everybody needs a
Zach, I
permit.
told you that story. We're driving down Rainier Avenue a couple weeks ago, and we see one of those people in a shark costume outside waving like that, and they're with one of the unpermitted food people.
Of course they are.
Right. So what happens is eventually they get into the U-Haul that's with it, and all of a sudden they're getting in there, and we're like, don't go in there, shark. They're going to serve you as food. It was bad. It was bad.
And as much as they try to avoid it, I think some of these food carts could use a little more ice.
Very good.
Ice is ironically part of the permit because they got to have. Here's 4 bullet points of requirements, and let's see if a Harbor Freight tool cart with the chafing dish on top with a butane burner underneath it and unrefrigerated hot dogs and mayo stack up to meet the minimum requirements.
To meet the minimum requirements.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like that.
Well, let's start here. Access to a bathroom for employees. Do they have one?
Well, on the street, sure. It's Seattle. It's
in fact,
Seattle.
they do. It's the mayonnaise jug once it's empty.
Oh,
that's nasty.
Adequate hand washing facilities.
No.
Yes, they do. Scrub a little mayonnaise on there before it runs out.
Oh, come on. Stop it.
3, food is from approved sources and stored at safe temperatures.
Well, the mail was before they brought it out.
I think hot dogs are a room temperature product.
Okay.
No, they're not.
No.
Obviously, none of these things meet any of
Yes.
this. And food is prepared in an approved kitchen.
Well, that's a definite no.
Absolutely no. How about no? All right, so 4 no's. A Harbor Freight tool cart hot dog stand is not a permitted, able to be permitted in Tacoma Pierce County per the health department. So don't buy from those hot dog stands and join me in hating them. All right.
Where can we subscribe to your newsletter?
It's a leaflet I send out in the mail.
There you go.
Very good.
If only you had your own radio program that I could listen to every weekday morning.
6 to 9 a.m.
There you go. You can hear about food carts.
If you bring up a hot dog, it's gonna come. Yeah, someone mentions hot dog carts in the text line, and I can see Phil just slide his chair back and kick his feet up. But I would like to leave.
I love it though that it's the "We Are Not the Same" meme. I have literally a red clown horn in my hand, and my dude Zach over here, my counterpart in the morning, has like an actual issue that he actually cares about. I just want to squeeze
Well, I
them.
mean, with touches of Bud Light bigotry,
Well, yeah.
which they also sell loose from the hot dog cart.
Unrefrigerated.
I think it's Modelo, but anyway.
Oh, dear.
We'll end on this on a lighter note.
Yes.
Well, no, it's actually about death. I take it back.
Death, 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 horrible death.
I saw this headline in King 5, 54 owls fall from the sky across the Phoenix area. Says the King 5 headline, why, question mark. What they really should have been asking is who?
Oh, no. Boo.
Wow, that's pretty great.
If you want to hear more of that dark humor, you can always listen to the morning show from 6 to 9 a.m. right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Young Zach, thank you very, very much. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including the squad's latest hits from the floor of Congress. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, and your last chance to win tickets to The Who. But before we get to any of that, I am so tired of the faux outrage over Jimmy Kimmel. What, the left suddenly cares about free speech? Do you remember Nina Jankovic? That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. She was Joe Biden's head of their Department of the Ministry of Truth. Do you remember all this fun back in 2022 and 2023? How about a little taste of the things that they were doing?
Imagine that, with President Trump right now calling all of these news organizations that have inconvenient for him stories that they're getting out there, that he's calling fake news, and now lashing out at platforms. I would never want to see our executive branch have that sort of power. And that's why, the legislative process with our duly elected officials is really important, that sort of consultative rulemaking process. And we can't just govern by executive order anymore. I think I'll leave it there. I think the reverberations in the free speech space are huge. Not to mention, this is exactly what Section 230 was designed to do, to allow the platforms to enforce the standards on their own spaces. So I think, the entire conversation is being obviously blown out of proportion for political reasons. But in the more democratic countries, I'm thinking in particular of Poland. Poland has established this consultative process with its Ministry of Digitalization and Facebook, because, like the Trump administration, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Law and Justice Party got this idea from the Trump administration. They believe that there's anti-conservative bias on Facebook, even though there have been multiple studies that prove otherwise. And they have this consultative process where they send someone from the Ministry of Digitalization to discuss with Facebook's officers in Warsaw all of the instances of unfair content moderation, and some of them are being overturned through that political pressure. They have a tip line that people can kind of report when they think their content has been unjustly overturned. And the Trump administration has a similar thing. So it's providing a lot of fodder for anti-democratic online governance. And it's very, very scary. And I think this is really where Congress needs to step in. I think we're seeing cooperation ramp up on a number of levels. So I will be completely honest and say that my program at the Wilson Center is partially funded by Facebook.
Hey, sorry. So hang on. You want to make sure somebody can't mess with free speech by controlling free speech, and then you're funded by Facebook to control free speech, but you're also working with the government to control free. I'm so confused. My head's about to explode. What's going on here? That wasn't her only pearl of wisdom.
And I am eligible for it because I'm verified. But there are a lot of people who shouldn't be verified, who aren't, legit, in my opinion. I mean, they are real people, but they're not trustworthy. Anyway, so verified people can essentially start to edit Twitter the same sort of way that Wikipedia is, so they can add context to certain tweets. So just as a easy example, not from any political standpoint, if President Trump were still on Twitter and tweeted a claim about voter fraud, someone could add context from one of the 60 lawsuits that went through the court, or something that an election official in one of the states said, perhaps your own Secretary of State and his news conferences, something like that. Adding context so that people have a fuller picture rather than just an individual claim on a tweet.
Now, before you guys say, hey, wait a second, isn't that exactly what Twitter's doing with community notes? She wanted the government to do that. That's the difference. Do you remember her musicals, by the way? Because they were a lot of fun.
Wandering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice or vote. Oh, information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origin seems slightly less atrocious. Whew.
That person was part of the Biden administration to censor free speech. That person was appointed by the Biden administration to censor free speech. That wasn't all they were up to. So all the left screaming about free speech now, it's amazing how all of a sudden that happened. If any of you actually watched Jimmy Kimmel's show, he wouldn't be in ratings trouble. Senator Chuck Grassley announced the other day in a Judiciary Senate hearing with FBI Director Kash Patel that whistleblowers have said the FBI, under the name Arctic Frost, investigated the Republican National Committee, the Republican Attorney General's Association, and Turning Point USA. There were 92 GOP groups or individuals in total that were under that scrutiny from the Biden administration. Grassley said that the case of Arctic Frost was used in the electors case by Jack Smith, but it was also expanded to encompass and investigate GOP organizations. Quote, these new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. The case was expanded to Republican organizations. Some examples are the ones we just listed, also Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups, Republican-linked individuals were placed under the investigative scope of Arctic Frost, including Charlie Kirk's group, Turning Point USA. In other words, Arctic Frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump. It was the vehicle by which bipartisan FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors, say the word right, Hoffman, could achieve their partisan ends and improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. Grassley then detailed how the investigation was also used in the prosecution of Peter Navarro and said that when FBI agents found that he could prosecute Navarro as part of the investigation, this one, Thibault, said, wow, great. The revelations come from Grassley with the backdrop of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the FBI's investigation into the shooting. This is what's going on right now. Now, today in Congress, you had a bipartisan resolution honoring Charlie Kirk, and you had a lot of Democrats vote for this thing, but 58 of them didn't. Who are the 58, by the way? Well, let's see. From Washington State, Emily Randall, Pramila Jayapal. Why wouldn't they sign on to honor this resolution? Let's see what the text of this says. It condemns in the strongest possible terms the assassination of Charles Charlie James Kirk and all forms of political violence. Don't they love that? Isn't that what Bob Ferguson did here with the flag raising? That sounds right up their alley. Honor law enforcement in catching the suspect, as well extend their deepest condolences and sympathies to Charlie Kirk's family, including his wife, Erica, and their 2 children, and pray for comfort, peace, and healing in this time of unspeakable loss. Spicy language there. Spicy language. It also calls upon all Americans, regardless of race, party affiliation, or creed, to reject political violence, recommit to respectful debate, uphold American values, respect one another as fellow Americans. Hang on. I'm waiting for the bad part. Where's the bad part? You know some of the people who voted against it? AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. Oh, wait, I know why they voted against it. They don't like America. They don't like American values at all. So is anybody surprised by any of this? Rashida Tlaib had a full-on breakdown in Congress this week, once again doubling down on how all of us are fascists. Yes, this is really toning down the temperature, isn't it?
And I think it's really important we need to stand up against this. Fascist takeover, that's not a bad word. It's a fact. And here in D.C. and across the country, it is so incredibly important, Mr. Chair, that this committee does not allow rhetoric that defames and or paints Washington, D.C. in a way that you all haven't really truly seen. You're just reading it. No, you're just reading it or something off of some.
Well, the gentleman. Hang on a second. So you're calling us all fascists, and then you say we shouldn't allow the language where we get to call each other names while you're calling people names. I'm very confused by what you're saying. You could see her brain break in the middle of that where she realized she was contradicting what she had said literally 2 seconds beforehand. Literally 2 seconds beforehand. By the way, today's perfect example of horseshoe theory. The far right and the far left have more in common with each other than they do with the center. Candace Owens is having a colossal meltdown that she wasn't invited to speak at Charlie Kirk's funeral this weekend. By the way, Como is going to be streaming the show. They're going to be streaming the memorial service, in addition to other mainstream media outlets. But if you're looking for somewhere locally to watch the entire thing, Como is going to have it. They're not going to carry Jimmy Kimmel anymore, but they are going to have the memorial service. So go give them some watches if you're looking for places to watch it locally. Candace Owens says the reason she wasn't invited to speak at Charlie Kirk's memorial is not that she's a lunatic, but that she is blaming the Jews.
Is she planning to attend his memorial service in Arizona? Was she asked to speak? Or did she ask to be a part of the program? Why would I ask to be a part? Like this is obviously Erica is in like full control. I would hope she's in full control, but I don't know because I'm hearing some stories about donors that are pushing things. I'm hearing about the pressure that's even happening with planning this event. And nope, you're right. You got me. I was not invited to speak alongside President Trump and J.D. Vance on the stage with Tucker Carlson at a memorial event. There's this memorial thing in Arizona, which is not a funeral. It's a memorial event. Okay, that is, by the way, in large part, from what I understand, being controlled by the White House. Trump is controlled by Zionists. So they're like baiting me here. Why would I be invited by anyone in...
Oh, enough. Just to confirm, by the way, I think I messed up. Como News is going to be running memorial programming in place of Jimmy Kimmel. But what's going to happen, where you can definitely get the memorial service, by the way, Turning Point USA is going to be streaming the entire thing, including Charlie Kirk's platforms are going to be streaming it as well. So I don't want to speak out of turn that Como's going to have it live. I want to make sure I make that correct, that they're going to have memorial programming, but they're not going to I'm not sure they're going to have it live.
Yeah, they're running the thing tonight.
Right. They're running.
That's completely different than
That's
what's
what
happening
it is. Sorry,
on Sunday.
that is my mistake. They're running memorial programming tonight in place of Jimmy Kimmel. That's what's going to be on tonight. And if you want to stream the service itself, that's going to be through social media channels for Turning Point USA, through Charlie Kirk, and I am sure that other conservative media are going to be having this thing. I'm going to double check which one and get back to you, though.
Shoot, not even conservative media, mainstream media is carrying it also. ABC is carrying it on their website. Fox News is carrying it on their website, as well as potentially a couple others. But those are the only two that I know for sure.
Yeah.
But basically, it reminds me of a text conversation that I had with somebody earlier asking if KVI was going to be carrying it. And unfortunately, no, we don't have a mechanism to be able to carry that because it's on Sunday.
Right.
And everybody has Sunday programming.
Exactly.
So who's going to run it? Me? Am I going to come in on my day off from working at the fair? Unfortunately, I'm not available for that opportunity, and we can't change the programming last minute. So I would imagine that most mainstream network TV channels are in the same position that we're in. That's why you can go find it online.
I'll tell you what I'll do is as soon as I see it start streaming online, I'll try to share it from my social media profiles. Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, The Hofffather over on Twitter. I'll also try to find it over on YouTube if it's there and share it from my sort of redone YouTube page, which is having a slow comeback. By the way, Ari Hoffman Official over there as well. So I will try and share it on as many platforms as I can, so that way it's out there. We don't know yet if the affiliates are going to carry it as well, but we know Fox is going to have it, probably Newsmax as well. So we'll see who has it, but for sure you can get it over on the streaming platforms. Candace Owens will still not be there under any circumstances because, of course, she's blaming the Zionists for all of this, which is beyond crazy. Now, what's crazy is, speaking of horseshoe theory, in Dearborn, Michigan, I believe that Dearborn, Michigan has fallen. A guy showed up for public comment to their city council and mayor, and he was talking about how he didn't like that one of the streets is being named after a guy who supported Hezbollah. Let's not forget, Hezbollah has killed many Americans, hundreds of Americans, most notably in the Marine barracks bombing in the 1980s. Listen to what the mayor of Michigan, who's a Muslim, said in response to this guy.
I mean, Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe, and although you live here, I want you to know, as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
Holy cow. Holy cow. That's where we're at. By the way, it's fascinating, his language. That guy is on the far, far, far right of radical Islamism, but he's using the language of the left. Do you see what's happening here? So when they say, oh, radical jihadis, oh, no, they're far right. No, my friends, it's the left that supports them. It's beyond crazy, absolutely beyond crazy. This is the kind of stuff that's happening in the country right now. And you have Rashida Tlaib, who thinks Hamas is a wonderful organization, but won't vote to condemn the death of Charlie Kirk. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. This is what's going on in Congress right now. So you have Pramila Jayapal also, who's railing against Charlie Kirk. Emily Randall, who's railing against Charlie Kirk. And they say, oh, we got to turn down the temperature. We got to turn down the temperature on everything. While they're ratcheting it back up. That's literally what they are doing. Make no mistake about it. All this Jimmy Kimmel nonsense, what it is about they don't know what to do with their narrative, so now they're trying to say, wait, no, we got to reclaim free speech. And you're censoring Jimmy Kimmel. Not that his ratings sucked, but that's a conspiracy to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel. Hey, Mike, which network runs The View? Right, that's ABC and Disney. If Donald Trump wanted to shut down Liberal Speak, wouldn't that have been his first target? I noticed they were on air this week. Nobody's talking about canceling them because, shockingly, The View actually has good ratings, which is why they're not going anywhere. I think it's our fault. It's all the conservative social media people watching it to go, what click can we get outrage bait from today? I think we're the ones giving them the ratings. Jimmy Kimmel just wasn't funny. It's not worth watching. Those crazy lunatics. Watch that televised loony bin. Sure, that'll be fun. We'll get some clicks out of it. Will be exciting. When we come back, my friends, got a story for you that unfortunately isn't getting a lot of news around here. Seattle Public Schools built a brand new, beautiful school building. Just finished it, just moved in, but it's sinking into the ground. We'll give you all the details, what's happening when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and your last chance to win tickets to see The Who live in concert out at Climate Pledge Arena. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Rainier Beach High School is in my neighborhood, and I drive past it all the time. Rainier Beach High School just did a massive renovation. There is this thing they've been doing in Seattle Public Schools, as well as other school districts around here, where they say these buildings are aging. And by the way, they are. Rather than renovating them, they have decided to tear them down. And basically the shtick is they build a new building where the football field or where the parking lot is, and then they build the parking lot where the building used to be. So right now, they have finished Rainier Beach High School. It is magnificent. They really did a magnificent job with it. It is gorgeous, and now they're in the middle of rebuilding the fields and rebuilding the parking lot. One little teensy tiny problem. This magnificent building, it's sinking. According to KUOW, definitely not my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy, months before the long-awaited brand-new Rainier Beach High School opened to students last April, engineers on the $297 million project reported problems with the building's foundation to the city. The school was settling into the earth more than expected in areas as much as 3 inches, and it hasn't stopped sinking. Now, anybody who's in construction, anybody who's done a big construction project knows they're settling in a house. Look at some of your concrete in your house, especially when you live in a tectonic area. Tina Christensen, Seattle Public Schools Capital Project spokesperson, said the project is on fairly porous ground, and it did settle more than expected. Wait a minute. Why didn't you just renovate the building you were in? Or tear down the building you're in, put everybody in portables for a couple of years, and then build the building where it was? Shortly before the building opened, it was determined the settling had stopped, but that may not be the case. While excessive or uneven settlement rarely poses an immediate safety risk, it can require costly remediation and repairs to elements like cracked walls and floors. The risks depend on factors, including the cause and extent of the settlement. The effects can be minor, and the question is how much settlement has yet to occur. So the Rainier Beach High School project carried known risks. The land, which sits across the street from Lake Washington, was previously a swamp. I love how here in Seattle, nobody has taken the underground walking tour. The underground walking tour, I call it the poop tour. One of my absolute favorite tourist attractions, even though it's in this city. I love it. I tell anybody who comes to town to take it. It is all about the dumb engineering of Seattle, how they had major sewage problems because of the dumb engineering of Seattle, and to solve their problems, they burned their city to the ground so they could fix everything. Okay, it wasn't deliberate, but they took it as an opportunity to fix everything. Then they say, hey, we need to build a new tunnel. Where should we build the new tunnel? Oh, we know, right through all that fill they did. Let's put it through there and hope it doesn't compromise anything. Unbelievable. The district built the new school on a part of the site where the soil is rich with peat. You put it on a peaty bog? Wow. Okay, peat I like in my scotch. That's where I like my peat. You put it on a peaty bog. Smart. Peaty swamp. That soil, made up of tiny fragments of plants and animals from millennia of decay, is especially compressible. It expands when wet, shrinks when dry, making buildings prone to excessive settlement. You know, for all the environmental studies they make you do on construction, did you guys not think about this one at all? At all. I would have come in there and said, guys, it's going to suck for a couple of years. We're going to put the kids in portables. We're going to get some General Steel buildings or whatever the case may be. We're going to practice football somewhere else. We're going to rebuild it where the school is now. We're going to gut the whole thing, whatever the case may be. Instead, you put it in the swamp. Well, I guess they figured if Disney can do it in Florida, we can do it too, right? Great. In order to build on a peat bog, Seattle Public Schools was required to sign a covenant acknowledging unique risks of the project. Are you allowed to? Wait a second. I live on a steep slope. If I want to expand my house out, do I get to talk about the excessive risks of the project, including excessive settlement and releasing the city of Seattle for liability for short or long-term hazards? Wow. Here's where you know I'm right. The old Rainier Beach High School, built in 1960, sat on a different part of the site and not on the portion with the peat bog that project engineers identified as a settlement risk. According to a geotech report issued ahead of the new construction, for 6 decades, that wide swath of peat bog lay beneath the school's athletic fields. By building the new school on a different part of the land, the district was able to keep the old building open during construction and avoid displacing Rainier Beach's 800 students to another building or portables. Don't you think it would have been worth it rather than the risk? Are these the same people building the light rail? Because then I understand what's going wrong here. In order to support the new 4-story school building on less stable soil, builders first filled the earth with dozens of columns of compressed crushed rock. The strategy deemed most cost-effective. Oh, wait, hang on. You skimped, and you went with the cheap option. Don't you guys know the golden triangle of construction? Imagine a triangle. One corner is good, one corner is fast, one corner is cheap. You get 2. So they went with cheap and fast, but it's not good. Oh, that is until the general contractor noticed unexpected settling of the foundation in July of 2023 while installing steel columns. Over the next 7 months, they measured as much as 3 inches of settlement in the central portion of the structure. 3 of the 21 monitoring locations were still settling as of November 2024. So they just kept saying full speed ahead, let's just go. Not, hey, we got a problem here. All in the school's gymnasium. Engineers told the city at the time, well, guess you're going to have a problem with the gym. Over the next few months, the settling stopped, and no further settlement has been observed since. Want to bet? Mm-hmm. Because you have compression over time. The problem is, how much longer is this going to go until there's more of this? So now they're building the new Performing Arts Center, and they're building the parking lot, and they're finishing the new fields. It looks magnificent, but the question is all of it going to be at the bottom of a peat bog by the end of this? We know the students have moved into the school building already, and it's gorgeous. I haven't been inside, but all pictures of it look absolutely gorgeous. But now you've got a peat bog. Well done. Well done. Also, keeping it with education, by the way, I do love this. So, you know, President Trump has slashed all that funds from the Department of Education. The left is like, he's going to use it for ICE. He's going to use it for the border. He's going to use it for aircraft carriers. Yeah, he's dedicating $500 million of it to historically black colleges. Watch them get mad at him over that. Oh, no, he's helping out the African-American colleges. Oh, what a monster. What an absolute monster. He said he was going to give the money back to the communities. He said he was going to give the money back to the schools. I love how he always puts the left on the wrong side of any issue. Oh, so entertaining to me. When we come back, my friends, Lars will be unleashed. That's right, our friend Lars Larson will be joining us. Catch us up on the stuff we might have missed this week and discuss the insanity with Jimmy Kimmel. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The first person to wish me a Shana Tova, a happy Jewish New Year, is actually our friend Lars Larson, whose show you can catch every single weekday from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Lars, are you enjoying the left's meltdown over Jimmy Kimmel as much as I am?
Yeah, I am, and here's why. They keep saying, you took away his First Amendment rights, and I said, no, he still has all the First Amendment rights he had. Do you have a constitutional right to be on radio and TV? The answer, you and I have been I've been on radio 50 years. We don't have a constitutional right. And you know there was actually a Supreme Court decision on that. I think it's called Red Lion, and it's from a long time ago. And there were people who said, well, I have a constitutional right to be on radio or TV. No, you don't. You have a constitutional right to speak, and if your speech, is pleasant or entertaining or something, then a TV or radio station can put you on. And when they decide that your speech has become toxic and even violates FCC rules, they can decide to say, bye-bye, Jimmy.
Well, here's something I learned, and tell me if you agree with me. Okay. If a joke had been funny, I think it would have gotten less backlash. But because this was just political pontificating to try and prove a political point without being funny in any way, shape, or form and spreading a bold-faced lie, I think that's part of the problem, don't you?
I agree with you because people have been calling the show and saying, look, he didn't say anything wrong. Yes, he did. He said that the people in MAGA were trying to persuade Americans that the killer of Charlie Kirk was anybody but one of their own MAGA gang. He was not. And all of us knew that. We all suspected it the moment that Charlie Kirk was attacked before he had passed away, which happened only a few hours later. We suspected this is not an attack from a conservative. This is probably a liberal. And, of course, what do we find out? It's a Antifa-identifying guy who's coupled up with another guy who's in the middle of a transgender transition, and he's writing anti-fascist messages engraved on the bullets. How much of a clue did Jimmy Kimmel need on Monday night to say this was never a MAGA person? And so why would he say such a thing? The FCC rules actually say that while they don't directly control content in serving the public interest, if you knowingly transmit false information about a crime that has happened or a catastrophe that has happened, if you went on the air and said, there's a flood about to hit in the Ording Valley, and it wasn't true, and you're like, ha, 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 that might kill people. Ari, people might jump in their cars. I remember during Mount St. Helens, they said if any of the radio stations, one of them did, jumped out early and said the USGS is telling people to evacuate Mount St. Helens, and it was wrong. And they said when you do that, you cause people to jump in their cars and race at high speed to get away from the little communities that are on the edge of Mount St. Helens. You could literally kill somebody by doing that. That's why the FCC says you can't go on the air and lie about things knowingly.
I think actually, I think some of those rules actually come out from the War of the Worlds Fund. I think that's when people thought it was real, and we actually got a lot of the FCC rules out of that one. Now, let's take Jimmy Kimmel for a second. I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a minute. So you and I both know his ratings were in constant decline. The only time he saw spikes was when the NBA Finals were going on, so that's not really for him. That's more for the network. But he's been in a constant decline. Do you think that Trump muddied the waters a little bit by members of his administration chiming in on this? Because now we gave the left their talking points.
Well, except that, I suspect, as you do, that his show is financially failing. We know that Colbert, they were spending $100 million a year and making $50. First clue, I'm not much of a finance guy, but if you earn $50 million and spend $50 million to earn the $50 million, you're going out of business. And that was the Stephen Colbert show. Do you think I'm right to suspect the same or similar numbers apply to the Kimmel show?
Yes, I think that, but not just that. I'll add one more point. All those writers who weren't very funny, they probably don't deserve jobs anymore.
No, they don't. And I'll tell you something else that's in the background. Do you know what Tegna is?
Tegna is the big conglomerate that owns King 5 over here.
Right, but it's Gannett spelled backwards. So when Gannett has all these TV stations, they decided to form a subsidiary called Tegna, which is just Gannett spelled backwards. Well, apparently Nexstar was looking at a merger or a purchase of Tegna. Now, what happens when you want to do a broadcast purchase and you're sideways with the FCC? Well, we already saw that happen once with was it Skydance or whatever the heck it was called, and that went through when CBS got straightened out. And now this one was sitting in the background. Apparently that deal is in the works. And here's ABC saying, we don't want anything to screw this deal up. It's probably a good deal financially. There's been a lot of consolidation. And if we have somebody who's on there breaking FCC rules, and this, I want people to understand how serious this is. This doesn't apply to cable. It doesn't apply to satellite. It doesn't apply to streaming. But since the FCC regulates the broadcast airwaves, if you violate the rules on the broadcast stations, that's why Nexstar, which owns or controls 32 or 30 of the biggest TV markets in their ABC affiliates, if their stations break the rules, their licenses can be held up, can even be canceled, and that would have been a disaster for Nexstar. So they said, we're not airing his show anymore. And I'll tell you what, Ari, if you're in syndication like I'm in syndication, and you lose half your affiliates in the biggest markets, you're done.
Exactly. And here's the other thing that people keep overlooking is that when you have the ratings issues, when you have the financial issues, when you have the political controversy, it's just one more thing. And your employer is going to go, is it worth it? And then when you look at the ratings and you look at the advertisers and you look at everything else, the answer's going to be no. Lars Larson, you can catch his show every single weekday from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Lars, have a wonderful weekend, my friend.
And you as well, Ari.
Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniels Burley gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, because the memorial for Charlie Kirk is this weekend, there's a lot of videos going around of Charlie Kirk in the aftermath of his assassination, and I'm learning more about Charlie Kirk than I ever knew. I didn't know about his wife before she came into the national spotlight with the statement she made last weekend following his murder, but I'm seeing all these videos of their relationship, and actually this one I thought was really quite adorable. It was when he had her on the show. Give a listen to this one.
My wife joins us, Erica Kirk,
Hi,
the beautiful,
everyone.
legendary Erica.
I love you so much.
I love you.
You're my best friend.
Welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show. We have asked the audience for questions. You pick one.
Who is more conservative and why?
Erica,
Yes.
by far. Not even close. I am a moderate compared to Erica.
Andrew always jokes that once you got married to me, you got more based.
That's true. That is true. No, Erica is very conservative. Do you
So.
think having kids made you more conservative?
100%. Which I didn't think was possible. But 100%. Absolutely.
And do you
And a
think...
better wife.
Mm-hmm.
We know a lot of women in our audience like that, right? And a lot of men are going, yep, that's my wife too. I know a lot of you out there are definitely doing that. But then there's this other video going around too, which I really, really enjoyed.
Turn your phone off for one day. No contact, no social media, no work. Your mental health will improve dramatically. So every Friday night, I take a Jewish Sabbath, turn off my phone, Friday night to Saturday night. The world cannot reach me, and I get nothing from the world. It will bless you infinitely. And I could be traveling for 5 or 6 days, but if I at least get one good Sabbath with my family, it charges all back up.
When he turns his phone off and it goes in that drawer, he's all on for the family. There is no distractions, and he finally gets to reset his brain. He finally gets to breathe. And as a wife, there is nothing more precious than my husband's sanity when it comes to everything that he's dealing with in his world. So I have seen it change him and impact our family in one of the most beautiful ways.
And it's made our family much tighter knit. And it says very clearly in the scriptures, for 6 days you shall work, and the 7th day you shall rest. It was important enough that God put it as one of the 10 commandments, and God rested after creation. Go back to God's natural rhythm. That is a day to go be with God and be out of the busyness and the hurriedness, noise of this world.
I actually really like that. Us Jews, we don't proselytize. We don't do that. But so many people say to me all the time, they go, wait a second, you are completely cut off from the world for 25 hours every single week? I go, yes. I turn off my phone. You can't reach me. I don't check my email. I'm not using electronics at all. I go to synagogue. I come home for big Thanksgiving dinner. I go to synagogue. I come home for big Thanksgiving lunch. I go to synagogue. Then we come home on Saturday night and we turn the thing back on, and it's fine and it's amazing. You get to spend all the time with your friends. You get to spend the time with your family. It's really just absolutely great. You get to forget about everything else going on. And people go, wow, I should do that. And I'll say, what's stopping you? In fact, apparently before his death, Charlie Kirk had a book coming out. And the book was going to be talking about the beauty of turning off your cell phone and staying away from technology for the weekend. In fact, this is how he signed off one of his final shows.
Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. Turn off your phone. Enjoy your family. God bless America. See you guys Sunday night in Albuquerque.
Now, I'm not advocating for anybody to give up cheeseburgers or anything like that or have the shrimp or anything. We're not advocating for something like that. But at the same time, he realized what we've been doing for a very long time, cutting ourselves off from the world for 25 hours. It's really very rewarding. It's very rejuvenating. And I look forward to it every single week. I look forward to it today. In fact, I'll tell you one funny story is that I used to have auto posts that went out when I was offline for Sabbath or holidays. And somebody who I work with said to me, I thought you were offline for the Sabbath. I go, yeah, those are auto posts. They go, well, it looks like you're online during the Sabbath when those posts are going out. I shut it down. I completely shut it down. I don't need the social media clicks for the day. So that's why you don't see me until Saturday night around here. That's what we do. It's very rejuvenating. Very, very rejuvenating. But I also saw some other good news out of this tragedy, which was a lot more people went to synagogue last week. A lot more people went to church last week. Millions more people went to go do that kind of stuff because they're putting the emphasis on things that really, really matter. And I really hope that trend continues. I hope it's not just one of those flash in the pan kind of things, Because who would have thought that Charlie Kirk would be this massive religious leader on top of all the political stuff? Tons of people went to church last weekend. Lots of people went to synagogue last weekend to follow his example. And you see a lot of these kids opening the Turning Point clubs because they want to bring a little bit, not just political sanity, not insanity, political sanity back to their fellow students and their schools, but they also want to bring back the religious stuff as well. So, really good example to be setting for everybody. Because sometimes when somebody dies, okay, you know, they were great on TV or they were a very funny comedian or whatever. He's setting a religious example and a political example. Really amazing stuff. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away two tickets to see The Who live at Climate Pledge Arena on Thursday, September 25th. Get tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. A copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. And two tickets to The Who at Climate Pledge Arena on September 25th. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. But don't forget, my friends, have a great Shabbos, a Shabbat Shalom, as Charlie used to say. Turn off your phones for the weekend. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back on Monday with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.